Hi, and welcome to Essential Cuisine Kefir Kitchen. That's what we're doing right now. We're going to make some kefir. Now, many of you may not know what kefir is. Kefir is I believe, a Turkish term, and it really stands for a cultured milk. And I'm sure you've seen it in many of the stores nowadays. It has the same acidophilus and probiotic bacteria that yogurt has. And a lot of people that have taken antibiotics think that, oh, they can just go eat a bunch of yogurt afterwards and that'll restore all their friendly bacteria, or their probiotics, which is the opposite of antibiotics. Well, the truth is that the yogurt probably doesn't have enough of the strong, flora, friendly flora, which is also known as bacteria, which is also known as probiotic. All of those terms kind of really mean the same thing. And what that really means is a cultured milk. It's fermented, cultured. Many of those terms, they all come out to the same thing, which is how yogurt is made. I have a couple examples of kefir here. This one is kefir by Organic Pastures. This has been made from raw milk and with grass-fed cows. No antibiotics, no hormones, no BGH, no steroids, nothing like that. Just pure, good, whole cow's milk from grass-fed cows. They have cultured the milk, and you can buy this like it is or order it from them if they don't carry raw milk in your state. Now, the other thing you can do is make your own, just like you can make your own yogurt, and it's so simple. I'm going to tell you, it's 10 times easier than making the cultured vegetables, because all you have to do is warm the milk, put in the culture, put it in a jar, and let it sit overnight, and voila, you have great kefir. Now, this is kefir that I made the other night, and it's actually 2 quarts. There's 2 ways to make kefir. You can make it from an original grain, which I have a little packet in here like we used before on the cultured vegetables, or you can make it with the starter of an already existing culture. Did you follow that? I'll say it again. You can start it with the grains themselves, like 1 quart. This is enough for 1 quart, which would be about half of this jar, about the amount of this jar. Or if I didn't have this, but I had kefir, I could take a little bit of this and put it in my new milk and make a batch of kefir that way. And we're going to do both to illustrate. First, I want to show you what I made the other night. I'm going to put it here for the camera to see, and I'm actually going to pour it into a jar so that you can see it there too. I'm going to take one of these jars. This is a little bit big for our refrigerator, and that's why I want to pour it into smaller jars so it'll fit. So watch this. I want you to see how lumpy it is. See, that's like a curd. Oh, I think it splashed up and hit me. Isn't that beautiful? It did. Okay, so that's what it looks like. If you want it to be smoother, and if your kids want to go and they go, oh, I don't like those lumps, then you can put it in the blender, and I'm going to illustrate that, or you can take a whisk and you can just whip it, or with a fork, and you can get it a lot smoother. I kind of like the lumpiness. I especially love it right after I make it and all the cream rises to the top, and then I eat the cream off the top because it's so good I can hardly stand it. I just can't wait for it. But it's a soured milk, and it's an acquired taste. If you don't like it plain, you can always add some honey or some maple syrup. I would definitely do it afterwards though. So I'm just going to pour this in the blender. Woo. And I'm going to give it a quick little whirl, and you can see how it'll come out nice and smooth. It's the most delicious beverage. I love having this in the morning, and it's a great thing to have in the morning. When you awaken and your stomach's empty and you put a little kefir in there, then you are just setting up your whole intestinal tract with all that friendly bacteria. And particularly for your kids, if you know they're going to eat candy later on in the day, if they have some kefir in the morning, they're probably going to deal with that sugar a whole lot better. And that's one of the great benefits of kefir. See how smooth that is? Much smoother, delicious beverage. And that's all you need to do. It's that simple. And it only takes 24 hours to make it, sometimes 18 if it's very warm. And I'll show you what to do if you're not in a warm climate. Where I live in Hawaii, I just need to set it right there on the counter and it makes itself. So we're going to put this in the fridge, and it'll last for a couple of weeks. This one we'll do the same with. I won't blend it. I'll just put it here. I think I can put a little more in there though. There we go. Just fill that to the top. This is a beautiful food. Now, You've heard me talk a little bit about raw dairy before. This is unpasteurized. So when people are lactose intolerant, it's a lot of times due to the fact that they're drinking and eating dairy that has been pasteurized. That means it's been experienced a very high heat that is there to kill off all the bacteria, but it kills off the good bacteria too. And it kills off the enzymes. So when you go to drink like a whole bunch of milk, you're not going to be able to digest it because it doesn't have the enzyme there to digest the lactose, and that's why you're lactose intolerant. So there's many testimonials. If you go to organicpastures.com, you will find that people that have not been able to drink milk in the past can drink this milk with no problem whatsoever. They thought they were lactose intolerant. Well, they were because they didn't have lactase. So when they have the lactase, then they have the ability to digest this beautiful food. And this is a living food. And when we make it into a kefir, it's even all the more alive. We have enlivened it more. If you don't have the ability to get raw milk, and you need to buy pasteurized milk where you live, the benefit to that is that you can get a culture, you buy a culture and enliven the milk that you have. That will make that milk a lot more absorbable and digestible to you if you were to enliven it. So you can always take food that is considered sort of by raw foodists or live foodists dead. You can always enliven it. So that's what we're going to do here. So there we go. I think I should taste this. So I'm going to show you both ways, as I mentioned. I know I sound silly if I just tell you how good that is. I just think it's fabulous. This is a half gallon. I've taken a half of it out for a quart size, and I've warmed the milk just enough to where I can put my finger in it and it feels like a tepid bath. It's not at all hot. It's going to get a little bit of a film here. Something landed on there. There we go. It's not hot. You don't want to get it hot because then you'll kill all the enzymes. So you just want it to be about 100 degrees, not over 105. And it just really needs to be not cold. So I'm going to pour a little bit in a bowl. This is the way I do it. And the reason I do this is because these grains, you want to really get them absorbed. So it's good to have one of these little stirrers on hand. You take the culture here and you sprinkle it right in here into the bowl. Just like that. And rather than putting it into a great big thing of milk, I do it this way first. And just whisk this until I know it's really dissolved. That's the whole idea, is to get all these grains. You can see them on the side of the bowl. They kind of stick to the side of the bowl. But I'm just going to kind of squish them and keep mixing it until I get it dissolved. It's almost like making a gravy, you know, when you start with the flour and the water and you get a nice little thick gravy going, and then you can make your gravy. But if you just pour the flour into a big thing of milk or liquid, then it all lumps up. Doesn't mean that this will lump, but you're going to ensure a cleaner, a smoother culture. And make sure that it's really going to be blended throughout the entire food. Now there we go. I think that's mixed thoroughly. Scrape the sides of the bowl here. Make sure I get it all. Now again, you want to culture this in glass. I'm going to pour that back into the pan and mix it with the rest of the milk I have here. Mix it well. That's the part you let your kids do. That should be just fine. Pour it in a jar, a nice clean glass jar. Whoopsie, spilled a little bit. Ooh, that's a little bit warm, but it's okay. Okay, I've got just a little bit of room there, and I'm going to take advantage of it and pour some more milk in. Because we'll probably just have a little bit of milk left over. Let's wipe this up. And that is all there is to it. I'm going to put a lid on it. And we're going to make another one. I'll show you the other way to make it, and then I'll show you how to store them. Now I can feel this jar, it's nice and warm. It's not hot in any way, it's just got a nice, just above a little lukewarm. I'm going to go ahead and shake it a little bit because I added some milk. There you go, that's it. Okay, now we're going to make the next one to show you the other way. Now I want you to listen carefully here because I'm going to explain something. This one is an original culture. I made this with 2 packets, okay? 2 packets because it's 2 quarts. I've made it, it is the original kefir from those packets. I can now take this kefir and take some of the culture with it. I took about 6 tablespoons. That's about the amount to use to make another jar. So I would take these 6 tablespoons of culture, starter, and I would put it in the rest of the milk, which I'm going to put on the stove now. You know what, I'm going to measure this because I like it to come out just right. So I'm going to take a jar. Because see, if I just use the rest of the quart, it's going to be too full because I'm going to add 6 tablespoons to it to get it started. Whoops. So I'm going to make sure that that I'm going to have just about the right amount of room. So I want to have enough room to add the culture starter. So put that in and just let this warm up. If you know you're going to make your kefir, you can get your milk out so it can get, room temperature. Get it out in the morning if you're going to make it in the afternoon. It won't spoil. It'll be okay. But otherwise, you're going to have to heat it if it's been in the refrigerator like I'm having to do here. And I'm just going to turn this on warm. Here, it'll just heat up in a moment's time while I explain a couple things. So I've taken this culture out of here, and I'm going to make another batch that's there on the stove. Put this, and then from that batch, I could make another batch. And from that batch, I could make another batch. And so on and so forth, down about 6 batches. That's how much you get out of one little packet. Now, if you were, this has already been refrigerated. But often what I like to do to get the most money out of my packets, is I will make 1 jar of fresh culture. When it's done at the end of the 24 hours, instead of putting it in the refrigerator and making my batches later when it's almost all gone, save a little, just enough to make another batch, instead of doing that, I get a couple half gallons of milk and I make several batches from that original starter before I refrigerate it. You will have a better culture if you do that because it's stronger. It hasn't been refrigerated yet. What happens when you refrigerate it is that you stop the growing process, or the coldness keeps the growing from happening any longer. It just slows it down and it stops growing, and it just stores it for you to eat. It's a possibility that it grows a little bit. It's not enough to really measure. So when you've got this fresh batch that's warm, it's just grown for the last 24 hours before you refrigerate it, if you want to plan ahead, you can go ahead and make, several more batches from that original one, and then you'll have some incredible cultures to continue to work with. Because let's say you made 4 or 5 bottles, 4 or 5 jars from this original one, then those 4 or 5 jars could go 5 or 6 times. You see what I mean? It can really go on and on. It's a lot to store. And you want to have a lot of canning jars. They work perfect. I like them that they're wide mouth, they're easy to pour. There's all kinds of things you can make them in. So I hope you understood that. If you have any questions, you know where to find me. So I think that this should be warm enough now. I'm going to take a little stir here and just check it out. Oh, it's perfect. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing as I did before. I'm going to pour a little bit of the warm milk in there. And I'm going to take this nice starter and I'm going to mix it up. Now the key to the culture growing is that you want to place these somewhere warm. Like I said earlier, in Hawaii, I just need to set mine out on the counter and mine will just grow beautifully. I'm mixing this really good because, remember, it had lumps in it, and I just want to make sure those lumps get really dissolved. So even in Southern California, it would get pretty warm there. And let's do this. I mean pretty cool, sorry. You know, at night the temperature would drop. And so I would always put my kefir in a cooler with some hot water bottles, and then that would keep it just kind of warm and cozy all night long. And then I'd get a great kefir always. But if it was cool, it would grow slow. And you just want to get the most growth you can, because these friendly bacteria are just growing, growing, growing. You're eating an alive food. Okay, we'll mix that. And we're going to put this in a jar. And this is another way to make this. Here we go. See if I measured right. It's like so perfect, I can't believe it. Oh, that was good eyeballing. Okay, we're going to put a lid on that. Now these are our two that need to grow now. There we go, both of those. Now I'm going to make a little space here, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to put them in a cooler since we're in a cold climate today. You know what I did? We have a potbelly stove here, and this one grew without being in any kind of an incubator, without being in any kind of a warm cooler. I actually just set them right next to the wood burning stove, and they kept warm and toasty all night, and that's the way they grew. But we got a cooler here just to demonstrate for you. And I'll show you how I do it. You can do it all kinds of ways. If you have a heater, you can set it next to a heater. But we just have a cooler. And we'll probably build a fire later, and we'll put these there. These are nice and warm and toasty. I'm just setting them inside the cooler. We've filled 2 of these empty bottles, so these plastic bottles with nice and hot water. And I'm going to put them inside, just like putting ice inside instead. And that'll get this nice and toasty. We'll put a lid on it, and it can just sit like that for 24 hours.